however, tensions between the black community and police are higher than they've been in decades. Because over the last few years, a string of high-profile killings of unarmed black men has led to public outcry across the country. In extreme cases, violent retaliation and even murder of police officers themselves. So we sent Cord Jefferson.
The Chief Williams of the neighboring suburb of Kinloch formerly spent 10 years on the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department, witnessing firsthand both the good and bad side of policing. Could you talk a little bit about what it's like to be, in our current climate, a black man and a police officer?
Most police officers out here are handling their business 24/7 with dignity and honesty. You know, one thing you have to always keep in mind about policemen and police work is that policemen risk their lives to help people they don't even know. But you have to always look at that one apple can spoil the bunch philosophy too. So it was shocking one time. I was talking to some officers and they said, you know, black people are genetically predisposed to be criminals.
You had officers say that to you?
To my face. If you're telling me that people of color or black people are genetically predisposed to be criminals, that pretty much says volumes to me.
And that's really going to color how you go out there and police that community, right?
Can't do anything but that.
Believe.
Can't do anything but that because you've automatically prejudged. I can count at least 4 times in my life when the police, before I became a policeman, were prepared to kill me, had weapons on me, and I was fear of my life, only because I existed. We have to figure out a way for those few to either change their behavior, get back on board as honest, just officers, or leave the profession. You'll notice around the country, more and more officers are beginning to speak out. We have to be the change that needs to be.
More than 36 million.
Another officer here with me, Col KL Williams. You're in Kinloch, Missouri, right?
Correct.
You have taught officers for 30 years on how to avoid biased policing and how to avoid using deadly force. What's your question?
Correct. Well, first, let me just say a couple quick things because I've been sitting, I've been listening, and first of all, I'm just going to say police work is a very noble profession. Number one, what profession out there do people risk their lives to save folks they don't even know? That's the first thing I want to say. And second, we got to really begin to look at the base issues. See, there are officers out there who are willing to step up. You know, they have, when they talk about terrorism, they say, well, if you see something, say something. I say to my colleagues, if you see something, do something. Don't just stand there and watch. Don't just stand there and get involved. But see, what happens is when the officer does get involved, guess what? He gets transferred. He gets demoted. He faces some repercussions from his colleagues, and therefore that behavior does not change. See, we can deal with this problem tonight if we really wanted to step out there and do something constructive and positive. Because the officers out there on the street right now, as we're speaking, they're seeing something that's wrong. They're seeing something that they know should be changed, and they should step in and do something and not turning their back saying, I don't know what I saw. I didn't see anything. You got to be responsible. We talk about accountability. Yes, I teach a class called Racially and Culturally Biased Policing, and it focuses on accountability. But if the accountability stops and is not supported by the higher ups, if it stops and this officer feels, well, I'll never move anywhere in this department if I speak out, because you understand there's a code. When you graduate from that police academy, I guarantee that you are going to be indoctrinated into a philosophy that if you don't toe the line, you're going to have some problems. And that is the bottom line. Now, we can dance around it all you want, and somebody spoke on some other issues. If you think that racism and white supremacy is not involved in police departments, you better check yourself. Because the KKK has been involved in law enforcement from when it just about started. So you can look at the historical perspective, you can bring it back to today, but the bottom line is we have an obligation. I have had more guns pointed at my head as a young man before I became a police officer. I don't even know how I made it. And when you look up to a shotgun that's pointing at you, it changes you. I knew I could never change the condition from the outside. I had to go from the inside. But let me get to my question. I have taught, I have traveled, I have spoken to police officers who have told me that they believe that black people are genetically predisposed to be criminals, genetically predisposed. Let that sink in for a minute. And it is their obligation to control these people by whatever means are necessary.
All right, I want to.